The battle of wizards and warriors continues with iron swords. The evil wizard Malkill will take the shape of the earth, wind, water, and fire. Farewell! The fate of the world is in your hands!
You're listening to the Piercing Wizard podcast, and I'm your host, Ryan Willett. I'm a professional body piercer with 20 years experience. I travel around the world teaching technique and safety classes, and I'm a member of the Association of Professional Piercers. Listen in as I talk to my friends and colleagues about our industry so we can all stay sharp. Hi everybody, how you doing? And thanks for coming back to another episode of the Piercing Wizard podcast. This week will be an interview episode. I sat down with New Zealand piercer Eden Thomson to talk about a bunch of different things. Eden is a really solid body piercer out of Absolution in Christchurch, New Zealand, but is also a really prolific suspension practitioner. So we talk a lot about those different things. I intended to interview Eden at BMXNet in Berlin, but we were both just too busy that weekend. So luckily, we were both also at the AUPP conference in Sydney, Australia a few weeks ago. So we sat down, we talk about a lot of different things, suspension and how to gain access to it. Do piercers make the best suspension practitioners, or is it something where, someone just kind of outside of that traditional body art practitioner sphere can join a suspension team, can contribute, can become really skilled at it? So we talk a lot about those different things, suspension and access and growth. And the conversation inevitably comes around to BME zine. Eden is, again, one of those BME people. And if you're not a BME person, it's really difficult to fully articulate what it means when you actually get to interact with another BME person in reality, because it's a short list that grows a little bit shorter every year. And I definitely am nostalgic for those days, if you hadn't guessed. So we'll get into that in a minute. I've got a little bit of information for you. I'm going to be doing a new live in-person seminar in Dallas, Texas on Sunday, January 28th, 2024. Registration is open now. You can go to my website at ryanpba.com to get all the info, to get signed up. This will be open to professional piercers of all skill and experience levels, but you do have to be a professional working within a studio environment, either as an apprentice or as a body piercing practitioner, and I'll need you to verify that for me, but I can be pretty flexible on my verification. So even if you're in between studios right now, as long as you do have professional experience and you can verify that, I would love to have you out at that seminar Sunday, January 28th in Dallas, Texas. Again, you can get all the info at ryanpba.com. While you're there, you can link through to my Patreon page. I just posted a new video about surface piercings. I show a really nice example there. And before the end of 2023, I'm working really hard to get 2 new videos done and published during the month of December. Usually I only publish 1 video a month, but I'm really trying my best to get a second video out there. It's kind of like a year-end bonus just to say thanks for everybody's support. So I know I'm working on a nostril piercing video. This will be a follow-up to my previous one. I showed a video giving examples of inside-out nostrils, and some people kind of find it as a little bit more of a challenging technique. So I'm going to make a follow-up video showing a slightly more traditional method of piercing from the outside into a receiving tube and some other different methodology. I'd like to show you tips and tricks and all that. So look for that coming out in December. And then before the end of the year, I'm also working on a genital piercing video, but I haven't exactly decided which one yet. It might potentially be the Hafadravia, which was a really neat variation. So I'll be back a little bit more after the interview, but let's go ahead and get into it with Eden Thomson.
So my name is Eden Thomson, and I am a professional body piercer in Christchurch, New Zealand, working out of Absolution Studio. I've been there for nearly 17 years. It's the only studio I've worked at. It's where I came up from. And I also do body suspension as well. And my page for that is Immersive Environments. And my personal Instagram also is Edelbugs, and I keep all my piercing stuff there. Yeah.
I kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of see you as one of the BME people,
Yeah.
Like there are not a ton of them left that are still active in the industry. So yeah. Whenever I stumble across one of the BME people, I really like to sit down, have a conversation, catch up and all that stuff, because I think the influences from BME, they're still really valuable to today's industry, even if the website is defunct and if the founders are gone now. it's still important that we can kind of share our experiences and stuff, because I think that BME vibe of experimentation, and it's like it's okay to experiment, it's okay to make mistakes. I think sometimes that feels like it's being squeezed out of the industry. I'm not crazy about that.
Yeah. I had this conversation with Mick actually today about because we had some great conversations about this very thing last night. We're all sharing all the stories that we have from back in the day, and just how a lot of these new piercers that are even at this conference now aren't going to have any of these stories, and a lot of them don't. A lot of them are sort of 1 to 5 year piercers, don't have this history at all. So sharing these stories is amazing and fun, and was a good laugh.
I especially like sharing the this is how I screwed up and this is how I recovered from it stories. On the panel, just saying like some of the dumb shit things that I did when I was a teenage piercer in the 90s, and hearing Luis's experiences and Brian's experiences, talking about that stuff, and then seeing the faces of people, especially as you said, like the younger piercers who are like, there's probably so much pressure on a younger, newer piercer now. Because when you put your stuff online, it gets judged so harshly and so critically that I think some people are nervous to contribute and to feel like they're just as important to the community as everybody else. They're very like guarded, and they don't want to admit that they screw up too. So I miss that.
I think in this day and age as well, with you're right, judgment and how quickly people are to judge on people and the work that they put up. People are a lot more mindful of what they put up and how they put up. But like yourself, myself, Mick, all of us with our stories, we're like, we've done some dumb shit.
But it's like you have to admit it, you have to confront it, and you have to like be willing to work with it and move forward, because if you try to pretend like there's a world where everybody is or everybody can be perfect, you're never really going to grow if you're not willing to talk to people about, I struggle with this, or hey, I really like how you do that, can you explain it to me? Without that aspect of it, like it's very challenging to grow.
There's nothing more validating, or relieving is probably a better word, than sitting down with someone that you've looked up to for a long time to find out they're human. Like nothing better. I think I found a lot of that at APP in Vegas, where you're like, actually just normal, just like me. And then you're like, feeling a lot better, a lot more confident in your abilities, when you're like, good, you fuck up as well.
I've learned a lot, because there are those scenarios where maybe you don't talk about it online, but you have those little things that you fall back on, where it's like, I struggle with this, I struggle with that. Like septum piercing is a great example of it. I think every piercer will have their frustration points with septum piercings. And I've gotten a lot stronger in my septum piercing abilities by having the conversations with someone, be like, well, what do you, all the septums you post are perfect, and they're like, well, I'm not going to post the ones that are diagonal, but they happen, and then this is how I do better ones, and like that has made a world of difference for me.
I've been having lots of conversations with some of the New Zealand piercers, and I feel like every story starts with, so I fucked this up last week or the week before or whatever. But it's good to feel, I guess, safe in those conversations where we are human. And it is helpful it's helpful for me, I'm sure it's helpful for others to learn that it's okay to make mistakes, but it's all in how we deal with it and how we recover, I think, is what makes us good piercers.
So being a good piercer, but also being someone who's a really important part of the suspension community, where do those two meet? Because like I wouldn't consider myself part of the suspension community. Adjacent, I've seen it from afar. I've never participated in a suspension, but I've been at events and I've seen it happen. And do you feel like it's kind of all one big team, or is it kind of there's separate communities that have kind of that Venn diagram crossover?
I would probably say the latter. I would say probably more a Venn diagram crossover for sure. Definitely. I think the suspension community, even early days for me, I was 100%, if you're not a piercer, you can't do suspension, because that's just how I was brought into it and how I was brought up with it. But certainly nowadays, that's not the case at all, and there's a lot of people with a lot of really good skill sets that they bring to the table. So I definitely think probably adjacent to each other. There are a lot of piercers that are practitioners, but I definitely think some of the sometimes some of the better practitioners are the ones that are not in this industry.
Yeah.
And they've got some really good fresh eyes to bring to things. So,
yeah. Do you feel like it's because you can kind of stretch yourself thin if you focus on too many disciplines, or do you feel like it's people should just work to their strengths, and sometimes those strengths include suspension skills?
Yeah, like I'm not too sure. Like, yeah, I think my approach might be a little different to most in how I view suspension, and how it is many different skill sets, and how sometimes it's okay to not be good at all aspects of it. You know, sometimes you might, you know, be good at throwing hooks, sometimes you might be good at working on the rigging above the rig, you know, but I think a lot of people think you have to be all of it at once, where that's not entirely the case. Of course it's good, but I feel like sometimes maybe, you know, jack of all trades, master of none. So you've got to be careful with it. Like, I'm just so gosh darn passionate about it that I just nerd out about every aspect. And I think, I don't want to say it's easier for me in the sense of piercing as my career, so that is muscle memory a lot of the time for me, whereas now I've branched out so much more with a lot more rigging skill than ever before. So I'm a little bit biased about it, I guess, and my model for it might be a bit different to others, from what I've seen at least anyway.
Yeah, like I feel like I have a certain level of skill as a body piercer, but I think that if someone threw me into a suspension environment where they're like, oh, do you want to throw on some gloves and help? I'd be like, no. I feel like I would be a liability. Like I might know how to push a needle, but not the way that it's done for suspension. I certainly have absolutely no knowledge base for rope work and rigging and all of that stuff that I see is super impressive.
Yeah, I think, just in saying that, I think that's a good point. Like, being a piercer doesn't automatically mean you are good at suspension. And now that I think about it, the more I think about it, actually, yeah, definitely adjacent. I don't think I think there is a little crossover just because that's the way it has been. But I know a lot of amazing practitioners that throw really good hooks and are really great with their piercing that are not piercers. And it's something that can be taught, a skill that can be taught and honed in. Sometimes piercers make the worst hook throwers because of some of the ways they were brought up and their habits, I guess. Yeah.
Do you see people that are fresh into it, that are piercers, and like the way they're piercing is just, I don't know how to describe it, like too nerdy, too micro focused?
Yes, absolutely. I've worked with a lot of people, I've helped a lot of people, I've mentored a lot of people, and absolutely 100%. Without I guess breaking it down too far, like, definitely there's that over analytical brain of people that you see and you're like, no, this is not what we're doing here. Like, these are the skills here that we learn, you know, like, and the way people are doing it is definitely they're completely over analyzing it, and just through no intention or anything or fault. It's just not what you need to do here. We're not, it's not a precision thing where we're looking to heal here for the next 12 months. This is a hook that needs to be thrown at a good depth.
But we distribute the weight and all that.
But we don't need to sit here for 10 minutes figuring it out. I'm like, no.
Probably not a lot of conversations about bevel theory and things like that.
Well, there used to be years ago. There was the whole, I know Christiana from Pinpoint, I know she did a lot of, her and Hova back in the day, did a lot of testing, quote unquote, with bevel up, bevel down, what's going to be better. And I mean, there's no difference. There's nothing. I mean, I've started to flatten some needles just to get rid of that little kick at the end. But other than that, we're not, as long as it's at a good depth, and we're not burying the hook, I think we're doing pretty good.
Do you have maybe advice for anybody because I talk to a lot of people, whether they're in the industry or whether they're clients, and they say like, oh, I would love to get a suspension or participate in suspension work, and I just don't know how to start or how to contact a team. Do you have any suggestions for those people?
It's a little bit harder for me because I'm so isolated. But I mean, I guess the advice is pretty general across the board, but definitely attend a meet if you can. Like, I've made a body suspension practitioner map, for example, where I've have people contact me that want to go on this map, so people have somewhat of an idea where they could go, and definitely ask for referrals. You know, we can do that also.
Is that like international, or is that New Zealand specific? Okay,
no,
great.
Well, I'm the only one in New
Okay,
Zealand.
yeah. Short list.
It's pretty short. International. Yeah, so it helps people find a team, and definitely just attend things first. Like, makes it a lot easier. I think that kind of similar, I guess, when we're talking about apprenticeships. You know, get familiar with the place. You know, become,
you don't just cold call a shop and be like, "Can I apprentice there?"
Yeah, exactly. You know, I definitely encourage people to show up to events if that's allowed.
Yeah.
Some people are private events and what have you, but it will also change your perspective on things, usually for the better as well. The amount of people that are like, oh no, not for me, but as soon as they just come and watch something, it completely blows their mind at, I guess, how much more, I don't know, cathartic, professional, all of the above it is. I think most people just expect a blood show. I don't know, but
I think a lot of people, their first exposure to suspension is that like club performance kind of thing, the shock value suspension.
Yeah.
And the events that I've been at, it's a totally different thing. It's energy and community and passion.
Yeah. And that's, I just got goosebumps then actually. Like, that's where my passion lies, is in the artistic presentation of it. Like, you know, the club scene, and that has its place and whatever, and I've definitely done that in the past, but my interest solely lies now, I think, more on creating really artistic pieces that are for everyone. You know, like a lot of people that thought they'd never be interested, and I'm not saying people are going to want to suspend after they watch it, but appreciate it, I think, is probably more the point here.
Less of a freak show aspect.
Yeah, and just more of a, let's appreciate the beauty and what's created here. Sometimes even more so with the work I'm doing of late, or the last couple of years, is more the body is not even the main focal point anymore. It's like the body is sort of a byproduct of the art we're creating here. We just so happen to use a hanging body as part of the medium, which gets me quite excited.
Some of the cooler stuff that I've been fortunate enough to witness. I went to I don't remember the year, but the Oslo Suspension Symposium,
where 2012,
where they had Stellark in the performance, and it was just like, it was incredible seeing it. And just it's art. That's centered around hanging bodies, but it's definitely an art performance.
It's so amazing. There's so much good stuff out of Europe as well. Like, that's, I think, where my heart lies, is European teams and what's coming out of there. Like, huge passion for that.
So that suspension directory, where would people find that online?
It's on the Body Suspension Facebook page, which is public. So anyone can be on there. I think you have to send a request through, but usually it gets put through. There's no real requirements. So I've just got it there for people to look at if they need to.
So, you being from New Zealand, and we're currently in Sydney, Australia, what's it like having a proper like piercing organization for this region, this like local community? Like, how's it been for you?
Really, really good. It's been, I think, attainable is the best word that I can use here, because it's attainable for a lot of people that may have thought this was sort of out of reach for people. So it's amazing. I think it's great, especially in a country like New Zealand where it's so isolated. You know, Vegas is great, but there's only, 3 or 4, I forget off the top of my head, 3 or 4 APP members in the whole country. And of that, only, a few of us have been to conference. It's expensive, So having something here and having a conference for people to join has been really special, actually, to see. And for a first event as well, I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed. Yeah. It's been good, and just seeing the turnout from people I didn't think would be coming here at all has been amazing. So I think having the AUPP since its inception, I can't actually remember. I think I was on the founding board of it, but now I can't remember, and I'm like, did I make that up? But I remember Joel kicking the idea around with me back in the early days of it. So it's I'm glad to see where it's come and how far it's come as well.
Yeah, yeah. You were mentioning how expensive it is to fly to the States. It's like something like $2,000 or something.
Yeah.
That's going to be not even a possibility for, I think, a lot of piercers.
Yeah, it's very prohibitive. I think in total it was about 7,000 New Zealand dollars.
Wow,
I
like
think.
If you include hotels, and the conference itself, and everything.
You can do it a little bit cheaply, but I tell you what, Vegas is expensive. Now, a lot of people warned me of this, but I'm from New Zealand, like, bitch, I know what expensive is, you know? But this was really expensive, like this was over and above. So that was probably the biggest shock I had of all, was it wasn't just American expensive, it was actually globally expensive as hell. So, yeah, you know, so you can do it a little bit cheaply, but not much. Like, I wasn't flashing money everywhere at all by any means. Like, in fact, I remember saying I was 2 days in, I was like, I don't know if I've brought enough money. And I brought a lot of money, but I was like, have I bought enough? Like, have I bought Vegas money? Like,
yeah. And like, there unfortunately is that financial barrier for international attendees, because it's like you don't want to show up broke, because you want to be able to participate in social activity, but you also have such an opportunity with like things like the expo to bring home jewelry that you might not have regular access to, or that just you know, it can be difficult to get stuff shipped in sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, that's one thing I didn't actually really prioritize. Was the expo floor initially, and then by the time I sort of did get there, I mean, everything was gone. Yeah,
that's a big problem for, I think, everybody.
Yeah, I learned, even though I'm an APP member, I had early access. I was like, I'm not going to prioritize that right now. But yeah, by the time I had got in there, everything was gone.
I think some vendors are doing better now, where they're not putting out everything on the table the first second. Yeah. Or if they are putting everything out, they have a whole bunch of extra backstock for day 2 and day 3, because I've been there on those years where you walk in the first 5 minutes, displays are empty, or everything has already been taken by like a mega shop or something like that, and you're just like, well, how am I, a mere mortal, supposed to actually buy jewelry at these things?
No, I feel that.
So do you have like, you know, your Australian fellows, colleagues, peers that like you get to connect with here that you don't normally get to see the rest of the year?
Yeah, actually, just like Vegas, here is the first time meeting a lot of these piercers that I've been following for years, that we've been friends and colleagues, peers for years. And this is the first time being able to meet everyone. It's been great. And just clicking with everyone has been super amazing as well. So you feel like you've known people you have known them for years, but seeing them for the first time is really cool.
I don't know if you have the same issue that I have. Like, I have a million Facebook and Instagram friends, but the stuff that comes up on their feed is like their life or their work, and not always their face. So a lot of times I have to do that like quick glance at the name tag and be like, oh, you're this person. You know, we've interacted a bunch of times, but I've just never seen your face before. I mean, I'm not quite as popular, but there have been certain double takes where people start talking at you, and you're like, oh, we're talking like I know you a lot better than maybe what I'm remembering, and then quick glance at the badge, and you're like, oh, you're so and so. Yeah, for sure. So what do you think of the conference and the classes? Do you have anything that's like stood out for you?
I think the tech has been great. Like, that's been super cool.
Right.
I quite like, as tiring as it is, but still, you know, like having back-to-back classes has been quite good. So you're not having to choose what to go at, you know, because they're not running at the same time. So I think that's been quite good. And just the overall quality of the class, I think, has been really great. Like, legit, really good, because a lot of these people are first-time speakers as well. So I think I've sort of said to a couple of people, like, you can definitely tell people that can speak, and being a good piercer of 30 years doesn't mean you're a good speaker. Those are two very, very different skill sets. But everyone's done really great, and it's been the quality of the education has been really good. Yeah,
just before we recorded, I sat in on Cherry's class about studio improvement, and like, number one, she has an amazing looking studio.
Yes,
it looks
great.
So slick. I like when people who have amazing studios, they put something up and then they're immediately like, I don't like this and I want to update it, and be like, oh my god, that's better than like most studios that I've seen. It's beautiful. And sometimes you can tell that like people haven't done a ton of public speaking, but they've put a lot of thought and care into like their class.
Yeah.
Because like sometimes you see the bad classes where people, they try to go up there and just kind of coast on their what's the word I'm looking for? Charm. Basically, you know, they try to coast through on their charm, and it's like they run out of things to say in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but you can see the instructors here where it's like they have so much to say and so much that they want to share with the community, and I'm really enjoying seeing these first-time instructors and like, you know, this fresh batch of classes, because with Vegas, I see a lot of the same instructors and a lot of the same subjects because they're important things that you want to have more than once, but I always love coming to a conference and seeing like the fresh takes from like the local community.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, Cherry's class was great, and that's why I asked what she was changing, because she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to change all this." And I was like, "What are you changing?" Like, I'm quite curious as to what was going on, but no, it was nice. Yeah.
But it also shows that whole like never stop learning, never stop growing mentality, because even if you have a studio that's that gorgeous, that's that well thought out already, like you can always see the things that you want to improve. Like I'm sure in your studio and in my studio as well, like you put a ton of thought into it over the years, but you can look at things and be like, oh, that drives me nuts. I want to update that and I want to upgrade that. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, no, that's always the case. Yeah.
Do you see yourself maybe trying to like pitch classes to instruct in the future?
Yes, absolutely. I've got a couple in mind actually that I'd like to do, which I'll definitely pitch for next year, depending on where the location is, because I think the location's going to change each year.
Yeah.
But I think it's still within Australia, so still, you know, easy enough to get to. So yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Do you have a good sense of like, are people centrally located on the coasts, or is it kind of like people are well dispersed throughout the whole country?
I think I don't know much about Australia.
Okay.
I mean, I do. I know a lot about the major cities, but I forget how big it is.
Yeah.
So it's huge.
Yeah.
Like I was talking to someone, and they were like, they came from Perth. And I forget that Perth is further away to Sydney than I am from Sydney, because normally I'm always the one that's travelled the furthest wherever I am. I'm like, yeah, I came the furthest, but it was 4.5 hours, I think, for their flight, which is longer than mine. So, I think it's all over, like from what I've seen, but again, not huge on the geography. Like I've got family that live here and I forget where they live. But I'm pretty sure it's from all over.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to be able to move a conference around then, because Vegas, love it or hate it, it's that's where the APP conference is going to be for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Something like that, like a conference that large, that kind of a beast, you have to sign multi-year contracts with venues and et cetera, et cetera. But if you have the flexibility to move around and maybe try to draw in parts of the community that might not be able to travel as far, I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, there's talks of moving it around a little bit. Obviously, nothing confirmed or anything yet, but I think again, being quite close, it's attainable for a lot of people that normally wouldn't be able to get to something like this. So that's really great.
Yeah, everybody just seems really cool here. I've always wanted to come to Australia, and it's not that I go into these things with a certain expectation. I didn't really know what to expect from this conference, but I'll say that if I had expectations, it would have greatly exceeded them, because everything seems like clockwork. It seems so well planned, so well thought out. The venue, like you said, the tech stuff, like that's always like make or break, because I've been to conferences where people have to fumble over the tech. Every class runs 15 minutes late because people have tech issues, all that stuff. Even in Vegas, even something that's been around for that many years, tech stuff can like make a class live or die.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's been really smooth running. It's been good.
So how has just like Sydney in general been for you? I remember we were talking the other day and you said that one of your favorite bands was just coincidentally playing here while you were in town.
Completely by chance. I just looked up, see that Warpaint were playing just up the road. So that was really cool. I haven't got out much. I went down to Darling Harbour. I've been here before a couple of times, but not since I was a child, so not as an adult. But I think I might do some stuff on Friday, because I've got your seminar tomorrow, and this has just been running, morning to night. So I'll probably check out a few of the touristy things maybe on Friday. I fly back Friday night, so
yeah, I want to go to the zoo.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've never. I was debating the aquarium or the zoo.
Yeah.
But like, there's a really solid aquarium in Boston. I've been to aquariums, but I've never seen a koala up close.
I've held a koala.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, they look so cute in photos. Me and my wife actually laugh about this. They look so cute, but they are stinky and they are heavy.
Yeah.
But we're still worth absolutely seeing. But
are they soft or are they bristly?
The fur is soft, but they're weighty. I'm just like, ooh, little cute wee bear thing, and you're like, no, not. You know.
Yeah. I think so. Certain animals have certain diseases, pathogens that are very inherent. Like in the U.S., I think it's. Armadillos or aardvarks have leprosy, but I remember reading something about koalas having chlamydia. Like it's very common for koalas to have chlamydia, and it's like, okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm not too sure, but now question everything I did as a child. I'm not too sure, but be safe, I guess.
Okay. So tell me about what the piercing scene is like in New Zealand. Is it something where you get the people that are coming in for like the Instagram cool stuff, the itty bitty gold? Is it more like 90s style, like heavy chunky stuff? Like what are people asking for?
So that's actually interesting because I'm here with, not here with, but meeting up with a couple of other New Zealand piercers. And it seems to be a bit different depending on the area as well, maybe a little bit. And I guess, you know, some piercers put out what they want to get in. So depending, like when I first started, like most, you know, it was heavy gauge, stupid ideas, lots of ridiculous things, all steel, all high polish, you know. But our demographic has certainly changed with us as we've changed over the years. Like we're, you know, definitely a lot more demographic is, you know, the itty bitty gold, you know, and which suits me fine, not just gold, but more delicate, conservative clients, which I'm all for. You know, we don't really do much of that sort of chonky 90s stuff at all. But in fairness, I don't ever put much of that out there.
Yeah.
So people like, I guess I say that because when I first started, we were known for that.
Yeah.
You know, so people are coming to Absolution because, you know, they do all the weird stuff. You know, but now we don't really at all. Some more advanced stuff than most studios, but not really. Like I can count on probably one hand how much, you know, surface work's coming in a year or whatever. But certainly, you know, and everyone's all like, oh, I'm just here for a basic ear piercing. I'm like, that's what we do though, you know. But I know a couple of other piercers up north, they favour sometimes a little bit more of that 90s look. But yeah, we just don't really get requests for it, really. Yeah, just with our current demographic, I think, which is totally fine and works good.
Yeah, I think a lot of studios, like, you know, you said you've been an active piercer for 17 years or so, and I think piercers who have been in it for more than 10 years, 15 years or something, they kind of started in one generation of what people were asking for, and then they've seen the evolution of what people ask for, and it's like you don't want to ignore that. You want to be able to like service the people that are coming in and paying the bills. But sometimes I feel like I miss that older style, but sometimes I realize that like if that's all I was doing now, my shop wouldn't be able to stay in business because there's not a lot of money in that stuff. Like for better or worse, I think the industry is kind of tied now to having higher priced jewelry, not just for the sake of it being higher priced, but the better quality comes with a higher price tag, and people are so focused now, and they're so well educated of the importance of the high quality jewelry. There is the fashion aspect of it, where a lot of people who might not have seen themselves as a piercing person, a piercing fan, they might not even see what they're asking for as the same kind of thing, because they're seeing it as fashion, and you know, I want something delicate and conservative in my ear, and like I love it. I think that if like 21-year-old Ryan had a conversation with 44-year-old Ryan, we would both look at each other like we were nuts, and it's like, well, that's what you're doing, because this is what I want to be doing, and it's like, well, I need to be able to pay my bills with the way the shop has grown and the staff has grown and all that stuff, and that's where the money is today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I had a convo actually with one of the piercers just yesterday maybe about the margins on this is what pays the bills, like, and it is better quality and a lot higher quality items that we're selling now compared to those limitations, I guess. There's only so many high polished barbells you can, pay your bills with, you know. So
I think I see it start to come back around a little bit though, because if when I started piercing, if body piercing, a big draw to that was like sort of punk rock, sort of counterculture, sort of like, I want to look intense.
Yeah.
Whether it was like something huge or not, but like, part of it was like they wanted to look different. And now if like the trend is like, I want to kind of like fit into like a fashion scene, I think that it's starting to come back a little bit more where it's like, I want to look different.
Yeah.
What can we do that's different? And some of that stuff that was really like hot 10 or 20 years ago is coming back around again.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see those trends, and it's like double cool to be an experienced piercer who's gone through some of those previous trends and just have it ready and be like, yeah, I would love to do this cool industrial project, or yes, I would love to do like a heavy gauge this or that or whatever. So it's cool to see those trends come back around again.
Yeah, you're right actually in saying that, because sometimes what used to be, the everyday back in, those early days, and when it does come back around, you are experienced with it, and it is a little bit, that's right.
Yeah.
I remember doing these things.
Yeah.
It's like, this is cool.
Yeah. Like not to knock anybody, because like for a long point, like I was the newer piercer, so I would try to like reach out and get as much information as I could to more experienced people about like, well, how are you doing this and how are you doing that? And now some of the questions I get, I would think that it would be like, well, how are you doing earlobes and nostrils, the stuff that we're doing every day? But it's not. It's like, how do you do a labret piercing? And it's like, oh, that's like the easiest thing in the world. I've done thousands of them, but it's like nobody asks for labret piercings these days.
Yeah.
Tongue piercings, they're just not popular where I am anyway. So now I get to kind of talk about something and share my experience, which is ample, but I don't really have that many opportunities to perform those piercings anymore that I used to see as ultra commonplace.
Yeah, that's actually interesting as well, because I'm the same, especially if you're not asked for something for so long and then it starts popping back up and people are asking about it, you forget that this is all I used to do. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, industrials had kind of like their resurgence, and I posted a picture of an industrial with 2 orbital piercings around it that I did forever ago.
I saw that, I remember.
And it's gotten so much play online, and people are like, oh my God, how do you do this? And it's just like, oh, let me talk to you about orbitals, my friend, and I don't mean a conch piercing with a ring, I mean like an actual proper orbital.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, no, that was a good photo. I like that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What would you want to see maybe come back around again? Like, what's something that you would find passion in that you don't really get asked to do that often these days?
I would like to do more genital work. That used to be when I first, I don't offer it a lot now, just because I don't get asked about it a lot. And it's one of those things, the skill set starts to get a little dusty, you become a little bit more nervous about these sort of things. But it used to be super popular when I first started. We used to get a big part of the gay leather scene at the shop, but I think as the demographics changed over the years, so has that. So it's just something I don't really get asked about, but I do like doing. But it's hard, I like doing it, but you like doing it more when you do it. It's like, it's really hard to be really enthusiastic about a piercing you do once a year, but I want to do more. So I would like to see more genital work, but I think I need to maybe hone in that skill set a bit better, so I can maybe push that a bit more, because you're not going to be pushing piercings that I'm not very confident in to the forefront of everyone, but that's something I quite enjoy doing. I just remember doing so much of it. Not well, but in my up and coming years. But I think just with the certain techniques I have with things now, I'd love to apply that just more often. I think that'll be nice.
I think another issue, because I've had points on the podcast and personally, professionally, where I've kind of been like, oh, kids these days need to be working on genital piercing and promoting genital piercing. And it's like, I know it's not for everybody, and it's especially not for every client. But I think like what I'm trying to see for a wider perspective is the jewelry aspect of it, because I think someone who's been active as long as you have, been active as long as I have, or others, you might have that drawer of genital stuff waiting and ready for somebody.
Yeah.
But I think some other piercers, they might not have any of the jewelry, and they might not really know where to start. Like, where's a good place to invest, or what sizes should I get? And it's like, who knows what I might actually be asked for? So it's this double-edged sword of like, maybe you guess on jewelry, but then somebody comes in and it's like, but that's not the perfect fit jewelry.
Yeah.
And then it turns into this thing where it's like, I would love to offer it, but I'm not ready with jewelry, or I have jewelry and it's not the exact thing I need for your piercing. So I know it can be really challenging for people to either bring something back that's been partially retired or partially put on a shelf, or to maybe just introduce something for the first time. I think that can be tough too. I've got loads of stuff just sitting in a drawer waiting for the right person, though.
Yeah. We're the same, because we don't get asked about it much. We don't keep much.
Right.
So, PAs we get, a fair amount in, and some vulva piercings, hood piercings generally, which we can Frankenstein up with, curved barbells, balls and gem tops. So that's easy enough to not just have for that. So you can have it for, whatever. But we keep a little bit of PA jewelry, but anything else, it just sits there, So
you know what I got asked for just before I left for this trip? I got to do a half a dravia.
Oh, wow.
Which I've never ever done in my career. For the people listening who don't understand what that is, an apodravia would be a vertical piercing through the head of the penis. So basically the lower point would be about where a PA would be, and then just straight up through the urethra, through the head of the penis. And you would use a pretty long barbell for that. So some people might not have that kind of jewelry in stock. I had somebody book in, and they put in their notes, like, I want an apodravia piercing. Do you have the jewelry in stock? And I checked, and I was like, yeah, I have a pretty decent variety, but that's kind of a luxury that some piercers might not have. It's like, I haven't seen the person's anatomy yet. I don't know if they need size this through that or whatever. Luckily, I did have it, but then there was also that wild card of they had a sub-incision.
Yeah.
And for people listening, that would be basically, imagine the whole of where a Prince Albert would be, but then you would have the skin cut, split basically on the underside forward to the tip of the penis, so that the urethra is fully exposed.
Now we're talking.
And I got to do that. So I would call it a half adravia, which is one of those BME terms where it was basically just the upper half of it, but I still needed the jewelry to kind of cover the full length of the head, the width of the head. And it was just such a rare variation that I've never been able to do previously in a 25-year career, and I just loved it, and I was just so happy for myself that I just dumb luck had the perfect fit jewelry ready to go. Yeah. But that might not be the case for a lot of people. And it was a really cool, it was a really fun variation to do.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. That takes me right back to portfolios, I remember seeing a 9mm punched ampelang on a 3/4 sub-incision penis.
Oh my lord.
Yeah, oh my lord indeed.
Yeah.
Because this wasn't from our studio, came from another studio, because I don't even know what procedure we did on him. But yeah, he came in and saw us, and then so I got to see that, and I'm like, whew. Yeah. But not anymore.
Well, so here's another thing. Speaking of not anymore, just the word you brought up, portfolio. You're of a generation, I'm of a generation where we actually had a physical portfolio and not just an Instagram page or a website. Yeah. Do you still have your old portfolios?
I don't.
Oh,
no, I don't. Yeah, a real shame. In saying that, my boss keeps a lot of stuff about, so it wouldn't surprise me if there was still an old portfolio kicking around. However, he has moved a couple of times, so he may have gotten rid of it, but I have seen one in the time we have been in social media kick back up again and go through it. And because I was talking about this, reminiscing with Rob and Mick last night about all the dumb things we've done. One thing that I was very proud to have in my portfolio was uvula piercing.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd done 2 of them, and I think I was maybe 2 years in, and I was like, pretty much clock piercing now.
Yeah. Okay, so just for my own fascination, can you give me a brief walkthrough of how you performed it?
Yeah, I said this to Mick last night. So I had a headlamp on. What we used to get, this is bad. What we used to get people to do is have throat numbing spray. So when you're sick, Deflam is the brand, and then it's got a light anesthetic in it, and what that does is just dull your gag reflex a little bit. And it's surprisingly stretchy. That uvula will stretch and it will come right out of the mouth.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to work so much inside the throat as I did. I could pull it out. And this was back in the cannula clamp days. So I clamped it and then pulled it right out, pierced it with a cannula, let it flick back into the throat while I pulled the cannula sleeve back out again, and then put my external barbell in there, and then pulled the cannula off while it's still pulled out, using the barbell as leverage to pull it out, keep it out, then thread it on and just let go, and it pings back into the throat.
Wow.
And just enough to get the photo. I think it fell out. I think the ball unscrewed and he swallowed it.
Wow.
But I did too, and yeah, I was pretty much king of piercing at that stage.
Yeah, intense. That's one of those piercings where I'm sure there was a point in like baby piercer Ryan's career where it's like, man, I would love to do that. But also there's the grown-up piercer Ryan where it's like, I'm so glad I never did one of those. I would be so nervous. But I know that there was a point where like 21-year-old Ryan would have been like, fuck yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, there was I definitely had that mod star attitude. Like the first, I'd say probably 2 years of being an apprentice, just because of the way you're taught. So you're not sort of, we weren't doing things great at all by any means. So that's what you knew. You knew that the more ridiculous and I guess scary it is, the more badass you were.
Extreme is a word that doesn't get used very much these days.
Yeah, I tell you what, I think I've got some MySpace photos of certain things. I know Matt keeps photos of everything. There's a photo of me teaching him how to do I don't know how to do cuttings. I'm teaching him how to do cuttings on me in the studio. So that's what we're talking about. That's what we had back then. It was ridiculous.
I'm a little bit of a pack rat when it comes to industry stuff, especially stuff from my past, magazines and different things that I might have been part of. And I would just like to say it on the podcast for anybody who had a physical portfolio, please keep it, please archive it. Like, don't ever make yourself think that it's worthless or that it's just garbage to throw away, because even if it's something that you would see as like commonplace and not a big deal, that's going to be like those people that have collections of like vinyl albums or something like that. Like there's going to be a point where they don't exist in the wild. Yeah. So keep it. If you're in a studio where you have a mentor or there's some sort of lineage in your studio where they might have a box of old stuff in the back, archive it, save it, because it's going to have massive value one day. Maybe not like financial value, but intrinsic value. This stuff is going to be crucially important to future generations. Yeah,
100% agree. That just reminded me of those MySpace photos, actually. 8-gauge hand web piercing as well. Yeah, and UFOs.
What's a UFO?
I think that's what, rook to forward helix.
Oh, wow.
With a ring.
Yeah.
On all the angles.
Yeah.
Perfect.
There were all kinds of generations of stuff where, like, there was this, I hope I can find it one day, because this is before I had a phone on my camera, before I even had a digital camera at all. I did a transverse lobe and a standard lobe, and then both with rings, and then they were kind of like both connected into a hanging spike and everything. And it was just this really neat, like, earlobe chandelier kind of thing. And I hope I still have a physical photo of it somewhere, because it was one of my old-time favorites.
Yeah, that's because in saying that too, our suspension album is still on BME. Cool. Yeah, I looked it up recently and it's still there from when I first uploaded, or maybe not first uploaded, but one of the first uploads of photos of suspension stuff that I was super proud of that kept uploading to BME.
I can remember the days. So when was the first time you went to Vegas for the APP conference?
This year.
Oh, okay then. Well, so I've been going most years since 2002. I think I've only missed one since 2002.
Wow, yeah.
And there was a generation where it used to be at the Riviera Hotel, which has since been torn down. The bar in that hotel was called the Splash Bar, and it was just one of those smoky, dingy Vegas hotel bars, and everybody would just hang out there. And that was a point in the industry where, again, digital photos weren't around. Social media really wasn't around yet, other than like I Am and VMEzine. So people would bring their physical portfolios, and then they would just hang out, and they would smoke and drink and chat into the wee hours of the night, and like passing around their physical portfolios and showing stuff off and talking and critiquing and sharing info and asking questions. And it was such a such a cool time in my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad I was
cool.
there for it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people might just look at it as like, oh yeah, it's the past and now everything's on Instagram and you can just swipe through or whatever. But I miss that the crackly plastic page sound and all that stuff. Like I miss the physical media.
Yeah. Having those convos I did last night just after hours, like it was great to share, and it did make me realise, I'm like, because sometimes I still feel like I've been doing this for 5 years. You know, sometimes it's 50 years, sometimes it's 5, but being around everyone here is definitely more like, you know, people don't have these stories. There's probably only a handful of people here, you know, that have got these sort of stories and memories that, you know, I sometimes forget about because you're not actively sort of sharing these with anyone because no one knows what the hell you're talking about.
Right.
Do you know? So, but one thing I do like to do every so often is have a movie night at my house with all suspension people that are keen and interested, both practitioners and people that we suspend, and we go through all old stuff, and I've even done a wee talk on the history of my suspension sort of upbringing, and we go through, because there's a lot of documentaries, I've done radio interviews, there's clips, photos, all sorts of media that I've kept. One thing I did keep was all of this sort of stuff, and just going through it all, because everyone sees me now. Like a lot of these people are new as well, so they all just see what I do now, and I'm like, well, wait till you see where we've come from, and then we just start from 15 years ago and then work our way up, and it's good. We'll probably do it again when Matt comes over, because that's we did it last time when he was here as well. Cool. It's good stuff.
Sometimes I'll hear piercers, the piercers who were exposed to like Gauntlet info, PFIQ info in like the early stages of their career. I know that Jim Ward recently published the old Pierce with a Pro videos online, and they're just available for on-demand viewing now. And those were so influential for me in like that 90s era, where it's like you had to glean little bits of information from like the back of a magazine, or maybe if you were lucky enough to see a video where a piercing was being performed, and you had to like scour it for every little detail and try to like fold that into what you were, you know, probably recklessly experimenting with, you know. And like piercers now, I don't want to make it like a kids these days youth kind of thing. I think it's more like just how disposable social media is. You make a post and then a day later you completely forget about the post. But like the physical media, to be able to go back and see the documentation, but to also kind of feel a little bit sad that people aren't going to have, from let's say maybe like 2010 forward, there's not going to be the same kind of documentation, because it's just going to be lost somewhere in the ether of the internet. I love those people that maybe, you know, do those print your Instagram page books, like go through and just print out like some of your portfolio stuff and have a physical copy of something, because someday you're going to want to be nostalgic and go back and look, or, you know, show it to somebody that you're talking with, that you're friends with, that you're mentoring or something, and be like, oh yeah, this is what today is, but like let's take a look at yesterday and see what that was too.
One thing I've kept actually was three piercers before me at the studio, the old owner actually, his protocols for piercing, and it's a page and a half long, but I've kept that because it was part of a little ring binder that he kept for different, just little things like cannulas versus blades and just stuff like that. And then it's got their specific or his at the time protocol that we keep him, because it's a good read. Like it's interesting to see where we've come. You know? It's good.
One day I would like to maybe do something similar for, you know, because I also do a fair amount of scarification, or at least I have over my career, and I found this old research book that I used to use on BME, where I would take notes little bits of information that I would steal from other people's pages, and with scarification I have this chart where I was researching all the different kinds of anesthetic that I thought might be like usable for scarification, and you know, like these are the benefits and these are the drawbacks of all these different products, and then eventually bringing me to the product that I still use today, like the blue gel, and it was nice to be able to like find that physical thing and connect to an earlier part of my career, and just be like, oh, that's some nice nostalgia.
I really I enjoy that, you know, like I love where I'm at now. Like I really love the direction and things that I'm doing, and some of the leadership roles I'm taking, and especially with suspension and where I'm taking that and where I'm excited to hopefully where suspension's going to go. But it's also nice to go back and just be like, oh, man,
yeah,
what a wild, wild west that was.
Yeah, and I think it can really help the future generations too, because again, going back to the start of the conversation, the pressure that people feel where they don't feel like it's okay to experiment, or if they're experimenting, they're trying to do it like so privately where they're not even getting the input and the feedback and all that stuff. So it's great to be able to humanize yourself.
That's a good word, yeah.
Yeah, and just be like, look, this is what we grew from, and it's like you will grow, and like I'm really excited to see where piercing will go. Like the people that you and I have met at this conference for the first time, if they're within the first few years of their industry, like I had to kind of say it out loud in the panel talk, like, you people out in the audience, you're the ones who will be the future board members and instructors and industry leaders and all that stuff. And, don't forget about today and then like where you're going to grow from there, because it's a journey for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one thing that, people that know me well know that I love teaching, I love mentoring, and I love leadership roles. I love taking charge, and I love, like I've been helping a few people recently up their game, and that sort of, like I'm very open with that sort of thing, and I really welcome that sort of thing. And I tell you what, I had a really awesome person, Casey, come up from Queenstown and did some shadowing. I was really worried at first because I was like, man, what am I going to talk about for 3 days? There was no concern whatsoever. Once she was there, we got to talking, and it was great. And it's good seeing that passion, because it reignites your passion as well, especially being so isolated from the rest of the world. I don't have a studio I can just go guest at to see my friends, because they're on another island, and usually it's so small no one really needs a guest artist, but having them come up was amazing. And then at the end of it, just supercharged, like they were supercharged, I was supercharged, so, and then again, being in Vegas, you go back home and you're just ready to crack on. And then being here, even more so here almost, I think, because there's quite a lot of 1 to 5 year piercers here, so there's a lot of passion about, there's a lot of people keen to learn, so there's a lot of conversations to be had, and it's really charging, and it's good.
That's, I think, probably one of the greatest legacies of Shannon and Rachel and that BME time. Like I'm so fortunate, I'm so appreciative that I got to be included in that community, because it's about sharing, and it's about everybody kind of growing together. And I think people like you, who are so generous with their time and their knowledge, and are trying to help, not in an ego sense, but in like a sharing sense, like that's really important. And I see that as, like, again, you as being like a BME type person, because that's, I think, where a lot of that mentality has come from in the industry. It's like somebody helped you grow, somebody helped me grow, and it's your responsibility to help the next generation grow.
That's hit the nail on the head, and that's exactly my attitude with this, and why I'm so forthcoming with that. Pay it forward. Like people talk, like if Alan and Hover, when I reached out to them 15 plus years ago, had blocked me, told me to piss off, I wouldn't be where I am today. So that's all it is, and you're right, it is a respect thing as well. I think a respect for the industry and what we've learned, that there's a responsibility there to safely pass this information on to people, or else how do we evolve,
Right. And there's the side of it too, where you don't want this to all be lost knowledge and a lost art. I don't want people to have to rediscover scarification, piercing, suspension 20 years from now and have to start at zero and have people's life's work just be gone. Like that needs to be shared generation to generation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very big on, or I have been, at least forever, but more so refined in the last couple of years, especially with suspension. I just think we can do so good with it that I'm very passionate on documentation, very passionate on protocols, and refining what we know and just getting better. We don't need to keep reinventing the wheel. There are other industries now that I reach out to that we can learn a lot from, where I'm adapting and trying to push us forward, which I'm really excited for. But it's hard again, being in the middle of nowhere, because it's hard to attend things, and in fairness, there haven't been a lot of things to attend, but really trying to still stay relevant and involved and helping and what have you. But that's something I'm very passionate about.
Well, it's great that there's this organization, this conference, this opportunity to share information. I think this is probably a good place to wind it down. So what would you want to give people for your contact info? Website for piercing, for suspension, for getting in touch with you?
So eden-thompson.com is my website. That's where you'll see all of my suspension work. There's also Edelbugs is my Instagram, childhood nickname. And there's the shop page as well, Absolution Body Piercing and Tattoo. Anyone can reach out to me there. And I think that's it.
Okay. Yeah, great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for talking to me, Eden. It's always really nice to get a window into that world of suspension, because as a body piercer, as a scarification practitioner, I'm just one step outside of that sphere. I know plenty of people that are connected to suspension teams and connected to the suspension world, but I'm not part of it. So I like getting glimpses into it. I like learning about new things, and I like seeing the difference between good and really good. And Eden is one of those people who's really good at suspension, so I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. Just as a reminder, I have a new seminar that's open for registration now on Sunday, January 28th, 2024. You can get all the info and sign up at ryanpba.com. And I'll be back with another episode soon. I have a cool Q&A episode that I recorded with Lola, and that one's probably going to be up next, so stay tuned for more. For more information about the show, visit piercingwizardpodcast.com or like Piercing Wizard Podcast on Facebook. For more info about your host, visit precisionbodyarts.com or search Ryan PBA on Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr. If you enjoy the show, you can subscribe on iTunes, Apple Podcast, and Google Play. Music by Benny B. Blanco. Show copyright 2017, Precision Body Arts LLC, all rights reserved.